Bench, heel on the floor, just rest and stretch so you should feel it right from the heel, up the calf, up the hamstring, into
My health and fitness journey. Thought I'd talk about, I don't know that I've ever really gone into my story over the years, kind of where I've come from. So I thought I would do that. We'd dive in and have a little talk. So where does it start? It all started with the Big Bang. I'm just kidding. I'm not going to go through the whole thing, like, like conception and all that stuff. Like, I would like to say over the last, I'm 35 now, I'd like to say I've trained for the last 20 years, and I've been just, health and fitness has been my thing, and it's been part of my, part of myself, part of what I've wanted to do, but I spent a lot of years just kind of not doing much. A lot of years, like in my 20s, like I spent a lot of time drinking and partying and just doing all that stuff that didn't really lead my life anywhere. And in fact, it led to deep depression, like deep, dark depression, and to a point where it just wasn't sustainable anymore. But I digress from that. I want to start back a little bit when I was a normal kid, normal whatever, just doing my thing, growing up. But I got to a point, this is where I'm going to start. I got to a point, let me see, we moved to the new house in, I was around 9, bear with me here, I got to do some math. I was born in 84, and so I think it was 93, I want to say. 93, we established in a new home. And for whatever reason, like, I didn't understand anything about nutrition back then. So I would just kind of like eat a lot of stuff. Like, I never ate just to like eat. I would just shove. I remember like just eating food. This one time I remember I just had a craving, and I knew how to do this because we at like a party event, a family thing or whatever, there was like saltine crackers with sliced cheese, like a sandwich. And I remember just one time, just one example, I made like a stack. And the thing is, let me also mention, I was homeschooled, so there was a lot of time I was just kind of on my own doing my thing. Like, I would do my studies, but then I was home, so I didn't have that like at school structure, which I like where I'm from because I think it allowed me to be who I am and allowed me to learn a lot about myself. But this is all part of the story. This is why I'm bringing it up. I had a lot of time at home, so I would eat. And also, here's the other part of that, is there was a certain time when I wanted to become a chef. I mean, for real. Like, I was looking at doing like the Cordon Bleu school, and but part of it was I would cook a lot of stuff. I would take all these things. My mom has everything. Like, she used to make cakes and things like that, so there's all kinds of bakery items. And that's where my special skills come in mostly. I can cook a lot of stuff. I can grill, I can oven bake, I can do all those different things. But bakery items are that's like my expertise, like muffins, cakes, breads, a variety of different things in that area. I've made ice cream, I've made all these different things, and they're all really good. But the thing is, I used to make a lot of the stuff because I would practice it. I wanted to be a chef. So the only reason I didn't end up doing it is because I just looked at like the amount of time that you have to put in to be a professional chef. I was just like, I want to do it because I love it, but as I started to look at it, I was like, I don't want to spend 80 hours a week in a kitchen. Like, I don't necessarily know if I want that to be my life. And so I was always kind of an entrepreneur even back then. I just didn't quite know it. Just my definition of being an entrepreneur anyway doesn't necessarily mean that it might be different for someone else. But for me, I'm really a lazy person. I like to do a lot of work at once, but have that benefit me for the long term. So I don't want to just be involved in something where it consumes my entire life. I like to just kind of relax, and I like to just kind of be. That's why I love today in systems and automation and being able to do work and put it out there and have it continue to work for me. Well, maybe I'm just sitting around staring at the wall. I don't know. Maybe that's what I'm doing. Maybe that's not what I'm doing. I don't know. But so anyway, I had a lot of time. I was spending a lot of time in the kitchen, just baking a lot of things. And of course, if I bake it, I would eat it. I didn't understand nutrition at all, really. And I was just kind of had a lot of time. So I eat a lot of food, and I put on a lot of weight. And I got to a point where I got obese. Like, I mean, I was literally in the obese range. And here's the thing, guys. This was like the 90s, so I don't have like selfies and all these pictures to share. I used to take like home videos, but back when I got a camera, and I remember when that was like magic to me, like a camera. Here I am just talking to a camera like nothing. But I remember having my video camera, and it was just like trying to conceive when I was a kid, like that this device could capture like what my eyeballs are seeing and put it in a permanent form was just mind-blowing to me. Like, there was this thing that was advertised. It was this video camera for like kids back in the day, and it was only black and white, and you had to like connect it to an AV cord to your old TV or VCR or whatever.
This is my Tyco video cam. I said my Tyco video cam. Not my mother's, not my father's, mine. Everyone wants to be in my next Tyco video cam video. My friends, my dog, even my parents.
That's a real video cam.
We're making real videos. It's real tough, as in durable, not difficult. Just plug it into the VCR, and then point and shoot. It's so easy, grown-ups could use it. If I let them.
The Tyco video cam. Batteries not included. Your VCR required to record.
I wanted that so bad because that was like, holy shit, like that's magic. I can have this device and I can actually record stuff, but the technology was so old, you had to be plugged in, wired, and it was only black and white. Like, that's pretty funny to me now, where now it's like everything has a camera on it. Everything is, so it's not magic anymore because, you know, it's just technology. I understand it. Back then it was just magic. So I would take a lot of video, but it was always first person. It was always... I never recorded, well, I recorded myself here and there, but for a long time it was just me recording what I was seeing outside. So I would kind of document a lot of things. So I've got a lot of cool videos from like the late 90s from that stuff, home video stuff. And occasionally I appear in those videos. I've got some embarrassing videos. Maybe I'll share them someday, maybe I won't, I don't know. It's one of those things in today's world, it's like, do I want to share that stuff? Like, might even go viral because it's like cringy, but I don't know if I want to do that or not. We'll see. I've thought about it for a business standpoint of like, maybe if I put out a cringy video of myself in the 90s, maybe that will help me get some attention to my content. I don't know. It's something new. It's fresh. We'll see. Or it could just be like one of those things that just you become known for like some stupid cringy video. So we'll see what happens with that. But I ended up doing a lot of like eating a lot of food. And I put on a lot of weight, so I got really fat. And I mean, I remember we went to, I think the place was called Bugle Boys, if I remember. I don't know if that's still a brand. It was clothing and stuff, but my mom, we were buying some clothes, and I remember I had to shop in the husky section because I was too fat. Like, I had fat. Like, I remember I had like 3 rolls. And there's one picture that it's like an actual like photograph that I don't know what happened to it. I don't know where it is. If I can find it, I will absolutely share it because it's perfect to explain. It was pretty much me at my fattest. I'm wearing my dad's swim trunks, which are like, I think they were 38 or 40 at the time. This is in the 90s. And here I am. I'm not even full grown. I haven't even fully hit puberty yet. And I was just fat. Like, I was just putting on fat. And I didn't understand this stuff. What changed that, though, here's the thing. Here's what I want to get to next. So that continued on for a few years, from like age 9 or 10, upwards to about age 14. We used to go to this thing called Rockable. It was like this weekly thing as like my dad, my sister, his family, whatever. We'd go and it was the bowling. It was like the big balls. We'd go bowling. And I was still really overweight. And this one night, I went and I was practicing kind of like doing curveballs. So, had the ball and they'd twist and throw it. And I did that, and I felt like this sharp pain in my left hip when I did it. Didn't think much of it, but it hurt. And then it continued to hurt for like weeks, for months. I was kind of limping around, and eventually I tend to kind of keep quiet to myself, but eventually I was like, hey, Mom and Dad, like, this thing is happening in my body and not going away. And they're like, oh, okay. So we went right to the doctor, and I ended up with an x-ray, and I have that, like that's back in Maine. And what I ended up with, what I did, and this was simply straight up because I was prepubescent and I was fat. I was obese. And the twisting motion that I did caused this thing called, and I might pronounce it incorrectly, I don't know, slipped ephemeral epiphysis. I didn't look it up beforehand, but slipped ephemeral epiphysis. It's basically the ball of the hip joint, right, that goes into the socket. When you're prepubescent, I think it's the same for girls. I don't know, but I know for sure for guys. Yeah, I think it's the same. You just before you've hit puberty. The ball of the top of your hip, it has like this soft cartilage while you're growing. When you hit puberty, it solidifies. But before you hit puberty, it's kind of like a plate tectonics almost kind of thing, like it's floating on this softer cartilage. So what I did was, because I was overweight, and it's a common thing for people that are overweight, and you might actually, like some people have it in varying degrees and maybe never even were diagnosed. They just kind of healed, they hit puberty, but it permanently changes your hip joint, and it can be severe. Like you can literally you can slip that thing right off and it will cause, you'll have to have like actual surgery and whatever else. But the ball of my left hip slipped a little bit because of being fat and the twisting motion, the quick motion, it slipped. And that was the first time I was really awakened to the fact that, I'm fat. Like I literally caused this because of that. Like no other reason. That's it. And so I got an x-ray, and it's permanently, like for the rest of my life, my left hip, and I deal with it every day. It's always a thing. Now, it could have been worse if we'd gone with a certain direction, because usually what happens is, here's the thing, is usually you go, and when you're diagnosed with it, typically what they'll do and what the doctor wanted to do, and I won't even get into all this stuff, because the doctor wanted it to just make some money on a surgery. But I was about 14. Puberty, usually this solidifies for boys around like age 15 is when all that cartilage starts solidifying in your joints. So I was 14. We were about to go to Disney for about a month, and the doctor was like, okay, we had the x-ray, and you could see my left hip was different than my right. It had slipped down a little bit, like an ice cream cone almost, like the ice cream had slipped over the cone just a little. And we're getting the advice from the doctor and whatever. He just wanted to go in for surgery. But what they do with surgery, typically, is they slice in the side of your hip, and they put a pin. They drill it through the top of the hip, right over the ball, and it goes, so it's basically in through that soft cartilage, and so it makes it so it can't slip anymore. But what happens is that shocks your body, and it instantly solidifies that joint. So the rest of your body continues to grow, but that one joint is now petrified. It's solidified. It's early. So everything else is going to go a little further. So what typically happens with that is you have to have like an extra shoes that are special for the rest of your life that add a few inches to the other hip, because it's going to be like the second they put that pin in, boom, that's it. That's the longest that is ever going to grow, to my understanding anyway. That's kind of what the doctor was saying. So, but here's the negative side of it. That was, it's like you do that and, it stops it from slipping. Cool. But once you hit that later, a year later, year and a half later, once I was 15 or so and all my other joints were solidified, the other hip solidified or whatever, they go in and they take it back out. So there's a second surgery you have to do. And my parents, we asked around, we're like, what is it, based on how it is and what you think, what's your professional opinion? We go to Disney. If we just take it easy for the next year, he just, does crutches, does wheelchair, does all that stuff. What are the chances it will get worse? And he's like, very negligible. As long as you take it easy. Now, if you're playing heavy sports, running, walking heavy, it continue to make it worse, and then it could become a real severe issue. But he's like, it probably won't. He still wanted to push towards surgery, of course, because he get paid for that. But we're like, okay, so we won't do surgery. We'll let everything continue to grow. We'll just take it super easy, because I don't have much time. Like if I was 12, yeah, makes sense. But I was at that cusp of everything of reaching that point of puberty where it doesn't really matter anyway. So permanently my left hip is a little twisted. So for me doing squats and things like that, it's always an issue because of misalignment. But it's something I've always worked around. But it would have been way worse if we'd done the pin. My hip would have, my left leg would be a lot shorter, noticeably shorter. But it's just got kind of a different angle than my right. So that happened, and that happened because I was fat. And that started, what I was trying to get to is that initial thing is what was I want to say one other thing actually. So we went to Disney, and I'm very stubborn. I was like, I'm not going to have crutches. I'm not going to be in a wheelchair. Until I discovered that two things. Being in a wheelchair at Disney allows you to get into the front, at least back then in the 90s, you could get in the front of the shows and the line faster. And also my big sister had to push me around. So and then once I got kind of used to it, it was kind of fun to be in the wheelchair to kind of just play around with it. And then the crutches and stuff, that was kind of fun to play around with. when I realized all the fun things you can do with it. So I did that stuff. I took it easy for a year. It healed. It's fine. Here I am. But that was the catalyst. That was where I started looking at myself. And I literally, like, this is bad. Okay, this is bad. But it was also, it's part of my story. At that point, around 15, 16, I want to say it's closer to 15. So I'm still I'm fat. And I'm just like, this happened. And I remember I started having this, like, self-loathing for myself. Like I did. I remember looking in the mirror, looking at myself, having a conversation with myself at that age, and telling myself I hate myself. I remember that because the fact that I did this, because I was fat, I felt disgusted. And that is a bad thing because it led me, I got to a point that I haven't really ever shared any great detail in social media, but I ended up legitimately, like, I never went and got diagnosed, but I can tell you based on, and I can show pictures, I can show you some video, I can show you some stuff that I do have. I ended up with kind of that body dysmorphia. I ended up seeing myself differently. And then, of course, I got addicted to fat and all that stuff. And then I got addicted to wanting to lose it. So I started working out. I started running. I started just trying to work out with weights. That was a little later. But I remember I first started with, like, running and things like that. But I did it in a negative way because I did not like myself. So I was doing it in a way to basically punish myself. And as I started to lose weight, though, it felt great. And, people started to notice. Suddenly I'm going from, like, almost 200 pounds down, I lost 20 pounds. It became noticeable. Like, people at first were like, oh, yeah, you're working out, you're losing a little bit of weight. But then people were like, damn, you've lost weight. And that was both a good thing and a bad thing. Because I got addicted to the process. I got addicted to weight loss, and I started to hate fat. So I went about it in the way that you should never do it. I went on a massive calorie deficit. And there's a lot of the story, but for time purposes, I'm just going to kind of try to step through real quick, timeline-wise. But I ended up getting to the point where I did the thing where everything was bad to me. Calories were bad, fat especially. Like, I cut fat out entirely. I tried to cut calories as much as possible. And it first started as this, like, little seed that planted, but then it started to grow, and it was bad. It took over, and, like, I mean, it scared friends, well, more my family back then, because, like, we lived in a small, what I'm trying to say, like, town or whatever else. It's not like I had, like, a bunch of people or whatever else, and there wasn't all the social media. But I got to the point, like, it was out of control, where I would starve myself. I was anorexic. I mean, straight up, like, by all the definition of anorexia, I was anorexic. I never got to the point of, like, bulimia, where I was, like, throwing up or things like that. But I remember some very, very detailed memories. Just this one time, I remember being at my grandmother's, and just all this amazing food, and she used to make this amazing chili, and she'd make this homemade pizza and all this stuff. But I remember at that point in my life, I was so addicted to weight loss and being skinny that, it was all about the scale, and it was all, calories were evil, fat was evil. I wouldn't eat more than 400 calories a day, regularly. Like, 400 calories was like a big day for me. And if I did eat, I had to follow it up immediately with, like, Fiber One. And if I did have milk, it had to be skim milk. Nothing could have fat in it. Everything had to be fat-free. No more than 400 calories a day. Like, I was just obsessed about the scale. And I got to a point where I think it was about my full height, which is about 5'8"-ish now. Like, I often wonder, because of that time in my life, that growth period, if I had not done that, if I had just done a nice healthy approach, if I had known what I know now, I wonder if maybe I would be a little taller. I'm not sure. Because I definitely put my body through, like, I took away all the blocks it needed to grow, and I became super skinny. I got down to, I think it was about 98 pounds, and I have some actual pictures of that, because the thing that's kind of funny is, like, back then I had that body dysmorphia where I would be, I would record myself working out. This was a few years later. I don't know the exact time frame, maybe 15, 16. But I want to say probably 15-ish. Because then I started the swim team, started with weights, and things started to change. So 14, 15. Anyway, I would record myself. And I recorded a few different workouts that I did. I thought I looked good, But when I look back at the video, I have no muscle. I am just boned. That's it. And I'll share some pictures with you. It's terrible. It's disgusting. But I thought I looked good. Like, any kind of fat, even like skin rolls, I was just like, ew, like, I got to get rid of that. So I was starving myself. and I would eat insane amounts of fiber, and I just went about it the wrong way. But I would work out, I'd push, and like I remember seeing, like, it's now I didn't notice it then, but I remember seeing, like, we went to the beach once, and then when I was at like my skinniest, and I just remember my parents just being like, just scared, like, because I mean, I'd been down, you could see every vertebrae, you could see all my ribs, like it looked like I came out of a concentration camp. And you know, they were trying to do what they could. They got to the point of threatening to take me to, I say threatening like this out of love, but they were gonna like put me into like a professional establishment to overcome that. Eventually I managed to overcome it and outgrow it, but I did a lot of things wrong. So I did the starving thing, but then I did the thing where I would starve all week, and then I had like one day a week where it was like free day and I'd binge. But I became like this little dick, man. Like I remember this one time being at one of the county fairs, and I was in that. I'd put on a little bit of body fat, fast forward just a slight bit, and hanging out with my parents, and I was so moody because it was my all-in day, and I had all this food at home. I just wanted to binge until I was just uncomfortable. And you know, my mom wanted to watch one of her shows that she enjoyed, and I was just being this little dick. And I think my dad ended up driving me home. Like my mom stayed there for the show, had to drive me back home to the house, and then drive back to my mom at the fair, all because I had to be at home. Like this is this is the way it has to be. It was all about me, and because I wanted to eat, I had to eat. That was my cheat day, cheat day, whatever. I didn't understand balance and all that stuff I know now. So I would just binge. I mean, thousands of, I don't even know. I didn't track the stuff as much back then, but thousands of calories. So I would do that thing. I'd basically starve all week and then overdo it on one day. So I was just wreaking havoc on my body. It was not sustainable. It was not balanced. Like if I'd kept up any of those paths, I would have ended up in a hospital for sure. But it's important because I want to share this stuff to say that it's not like, I mean, you see me now and you see what I do. And, health and fitness has been part of my life for a while, for decades, but it wasn't like this nice, consistent, linear path. It's been a lot of struggle. I've done a lot of things wrong. And it's not out of other people that wanted to show me how to do it. It was that I was so caught up in what I was doing, I didn't see anything. It was just this is what I saw. And it's bad. That stuff was bad. So that's why when I give you the stuff I have now, what I figured out now, and sustainability and calorie deficits and all that, it's a whole lot different because I can tell you where I came from. And it was a terrible, terrible thing. I've been obese. I've been anorexic. I've had body dysmorphia. Now, I don't have like a doctor to say like, oh yeah, here's like a paper. I do have the x-ray for my hip. I have pictures. I have things like that here and there. I do have some video I can share. But I'm telling you, like that's where I came from. My personal experience, like of all the definitions of all these different disorders, I went through it. And it took a while. Like even when I finally kind of got better, like I remember around 18, I started lifting a lot of weights. My parents went to Sam's Club, got this weight set, and it was just like a bar and some weights, and it came with this VHS tape. And the funny thing is, I ended up recording it. I still have it. It's a body pump workout, and it's 45 minutes. And I started doing this. I was around 18. I was doing it like an every other day schedule, and I still didn't quite understand nutrition. Like I was doing it much better, but it wasn't quite like what I know now. It wasn't quite as balanced. So anyway, long story short, though, I put on a lot of muscle. Like I was at that time, I think I got up to about 160 pounds, and I was eating a lot. I was doing like kind of a dirty bulk now that I understand like these terms, like looking back. But I got up to 160 pounds. I'm 5'8"ish. I was bench pressing over, I think my highest was like 200 or something like that, which is whatever. To me, it was impressive because I'm like, it's 40 pounds over my own body weight. I mean, a lot of people do a lot more of stuff, and that stuff doesn't even matter to me now. That literally just doesn't matter. But when you're younger, how much you can bench and all this stuff, it seems to matter. And I'm sure I probably injured myself and did things that if I knew what I know now, I wouldn't do back then. But I did it, and I did that workout every other day. I'd play that tape repetitively. I still hear the songs in my head. And I got some results, but I also put on body fat because of the way I was eating. And my girlfriend at the time, and what I'm trying to say is like some of the things that still were residual in my head is as far as body dysmorphia is I felt pretty good, and I felt, you know, put on muscle. I had some striations. My chest was big. Like, I felt muscular. But she kind of made the comment once, because I put on like the love handles a little bit, the body fat. She's like, oh, you know, she liked me like that because it's a little more fluffy. I had muscle, but I was also kind of puffy. And I just remember, like, it was those kind of comments that would still, like, this little, you know, like the angel and the devil on your shoulder kind of thing. Like, it would sit there and try to, like, get into my spirit when I heard those things, because that whole eating disorder thing was hard. Like, fat was still kind of any kind of fat in my body it was hard for me to accept back then. Now it's like, now I'm over it, but it took like a decade, like into my 20s. If somebody said something about my fat rolls, or if I saw a picture where I looked kind of fat, even if I wasn't really, like if I was a little, you know, had extra body fat, like now I look at it, not a big deal, because things come and go. It's fine. It's the season. Now I understand how to lose weight, how to gain weight. Back then, though, it was kind of a permanence thing. So someone, or if I noticed fat, or if someone pointed out, like, oh, you look a little fluffy today or something, even as a joke, back then, used to just, like, it would set me off inside. And it was bad. But, you know, fast forward now in my 30s, I just don't really care. I don't care about this stuff. I've learned a lot. But the whole point of the story is where I've come from. And where I'm at today is a culmination of doing a lot of things wrong and dealing with a lot of mental hurdles. So I don't know why. I think maybe I want to share it because, for one, it's my story. For two, I think maybe it can be more relatable, because you see me now, and you know, I am what I am, and I'm doing what I'm doing, and I'm finally doing it right. Like, I'm doing it in a way that's actually sustainable and actually healthy. And I have, like, and I'm not just saying that, like, I have blood work. I follow up with that stuff. Like, I have the actual tangible data as well. Like, I know I'm doing it right, and I know how I look. And, you know, little body fat's fine. Gaining a little bit, no big deal. Not a problem. Being obese, though, is not necessarily, I mean, there's a few people that might have, like, disorders or things they're dealing with, their genetics or something, where it's much harder to lose body fat. But being obese is really just a case of self-indulgence, of just too many calories in, not enough calories out. And that's why I do what I do, and why I want to help coach and help people with transformations and change their lives. I don't want this to go much more than 30 minutes. There's so much more to say, but maybe we'll do another part. Maybe we'll talk more in detail. If you have any questions, if you want me to go deeper into any of this stuff. So I've been overweight. That caused me to have an injury. I then started losing weight, and it was good at the start, but then I became addicted to it, and then I got to the point of body dysmorphia and anorexia. And then I got to the point of dealing with the mental side of that over into my 20s. And then I kind of got into partying and drinking and just all that stuff. Like, you know, being blackout drunk wasn't a normal night for me. And that led me into deep depression. And then all that kind of came together, and I finally made that move when I was like 24. I think I was 24, where I was like, I had to do something. Like, all that stuff just wasn't me. None of that was sustainable, and it was just, I finally got to a point, like I said, of deep, dark depression. Nothing. I couldn't do anything. Like, even staring at the wall, it just had this, like, feeling of dread. No energy, nothing. And I finally made the change when I moved at around 24. I moved to Florida, changed my life, made a decision to finally start doing things that were sustainable. And that's where I came into Beachbody, and that's where I came into all this stuff. And you know, it's been a journey through that as well over a decade. I wish I could say where I've been nice and consistent with that. I wasn't. It was up and down, but it was none of that stuff. Like, I learned a lot from those earlier years. So that's what I have to bring to the table versus where I am now from where I came from. It hasn't been a nice, healthy, consistent, sustainable path. It's been a lot of struggle, a lot of internal stuff, and a lot of things that I've done wrong that I finally learned how to do right. So I'm here to share that with you, to help you. If you have any of these issues, feel free to reach out. If you have nobody to talk to, or if this inspires you to connect, reach out. I don't know why I just got emotional from that, but Okay. I know it's hard. And it's hard to talk to people and you get inside. So, I'm going to end this video because, reach out to me. Let me know if you're dealing with something. And we'll figure it out. So Jason here, betterbody90.com. Keep doing what it takes, and I will see you guys next time.